my guys help me mine through the shit, the false responsibility, the manipulation, the toxic masculinity, and just all this stuff that's a normal human man experience. And then we find the golden wisdom nuggets. Okay, where is the authentic ownership? What am I not seeing? Or what is like the core, like what is the lead domino? What is the transcendent truth?
Mhm.
And they are masterful at helping me get there.
I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. All right, all right. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Owning Your Sexual Self. I am here with the Jordan Maurice Bowditch, all the way
Hello.
from Jipping Springs, Texas. So excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so people that have been listening to the show, when I refer to my mentors as Alexa and Jordan, this is it. This is the Jordan. This is who you hear about in the show. I often, I've learned so much from you guys over the last couple of years, and so again, just thank you for letting me be a part of your world and just all that you do for men, women, couples, all the people.
Mm, Thank you. It is truly my pleasure and honor to be in connection with you, to support you. And yeah, I'm excited to dig in today.
Yes. Yeah. So we're talking male friendships, which I had a couple months ago done the female version of this, just talking through like what is the importance of female friendships. And today now being able to talk through now the other side of this. So I've been working more with male clients and couples in coaching and therapy and all of the things. And so this comes up of, and I often get the questions from men, why are male friendships so important? And I was like, we got to have Jordan on the show because you just bring like a different flavor to this concept. It's not just getting together and we're going to hang out, we're going to play some beer pong, we're going to play some video games, right? Like you have cultivated such a different, just a different connection with men. So I'd like to, because you had the beer pong days right back in your life.
Yep.
So tell us just like for you, how have your male friendships evolved over
Mm.
time?
Well, just to be clear, I still love a good game of beer pong. So, can take the boy out the frat, but can't take the frat out the boy. And following that thread a little bit, I was in a fraternity in college. And so I think that that's probably the most relevant starting point of this conversation. Certainly before that, growing up in high school, male friendships were important to me. But it was just more, that was the natural flow of life, was just friends at school kind of a thing. And like attracts like. So boys with boys, girls with girls. And there's some cross pollinating, but mostly just, the hormones fueled that more than anything. And then in college, I went to San Diego State. I was in Sigma Chi, the Delta Xi chapter. Shout out to my boys out there. And, there's plenty of stereotypes and cliches for a reason. There's a lot of truth to those things. You want to find toxic masculinity anywhere. This is a good place. That was a good place to find some of it. And that stuff aside, plenty of shadow to that I've dug into and will continue to in certain ways, but overwhelmingly, it was an incredibly positive, impactful experience on so many levels. And specifically for the context of this conversation, rites of passage and brotherhood and initiations and that incubator for going into that, in a lot of ways, I would say second to none, especially in the modern day where that's not super accessible and just a natural, accepted piece that men are exposed to in their lives. You really have to seek it. And so I was grateful that, yeah, I kind of more or less stumbled into that container. And, I lived with, I guess for about 3 years, I lived in a fraternity house with 45 guys. And the active fraternity was between 150 and 200 guys. And consistently throughout the days, weeks, months, semesters, we had very intentional rites of passage. Some were very physical in nature, and or others were very emotional. And I wouldn't have put the same language to it that I do now, but looking back, I'm like, holy shit, that was very progressive and very much formed the foundation of the work I do today. And for me being a champion of having important, consistent male friendships that challenge you, that hold you accountable, that uh, reflect your blind spots and your greatness back to you. And once that container was over, I found there was a void. There's a big void. I was like, okay, well, now what? Because similarly, on some level, I stumbled into that. Um, like I said, in high school and all those kind of things. And then in college, I was like, all right, cool. What's the social container? But then once I'm an adult, it's like, well, now what? Do I like go online and try and find friends? Do I go to a bar and see who I run into? It's like, I maybe, but so that's kind of the where things started. And then from there, started going to a lot of personal development retreats in my 20s and worked for a company called Bulletproof. A lot of people are familiar with Bulletproof Coffee, which is the company was lifestyle brand, nutrition, biohacking, those kinds of things. So I was going to a bunch of conferences, health summits, and started to find more of what my modern friendships and brotherhood looks like today.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you shared that because and you use the word toxic masculinity, which is something I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get into because there's the question of that when I'm having conversations with people around, the masculine, the feminine, that's such a hot topic that just the word
Uh-huh.
toxic is such a hot topic. And so before we go in, can you touch on that a little bit? Because I know that
Yeah.
you would just give some great definition to this. Like you have your toxic masculine, and then you have what would you call the healthy masculine, right? So
Healthy masculine, awakened, positive, whatever terms resonate.
yeah.
Mhm.
So if you in just like a few words, like few short sentences to categorize each, how would you summarize those for somebody that's listening?
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's relative and it's a spectrum. Some people, some ultra spiritual people would look at my masculinity and my friendships and my um, brotherhood experiences, and they might say that's toxic or there's toxic components. And to which I would say politely, fuck off. But, I think toxic would be, to me, it is men not being authentic. That would be one place to start. So it's just like a performative, it's showy, it's not genuine and authentic. That so that would be toxic. And I mean, I don't know that it needs to be said, but there's the more obvious extreme forms of toxic masculinity that you can find online, and it's men just saying horrible things about women, and being just like fuckboys, for lack of a better way of saying it. And oftentimes, funny enough, I would say toxic masculinity, a component of it is men being in their feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, an example that comes to mind is, in my estimation, it's a very feminine being, like having drugs or drinking alcohol, consuming substances is a feminine experience. And it can be really beautiful. Like when I partake of that medicine, I'm knowingly going into a flowy feminine space. But when men are addicted to that lifestyle and are doing it in a way without any level of real intention, they're weekend warriors. That is, to me, a symptom of toxic masculinity. So I could say much more, but that's my little riff for now.
Yeah. And I think that's good. And so yeah, when you say like authenticity, I think that's such a huge piece of the masculine. And then again, like creating relationships with other men who are doing the same. And this is what I try to explain, but like that only brings out a better, like higher version of yourself. And
No question.
as you said, like having people in your space that are on team you and that are going to be able to reflect back to you, right? Doing shadow work and things like that. And they're not just going to be this yes person, right? Like they're going to provide that challenge for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that just came to mind is, and this is a more subtle form of toxic masculinity, is commiserating over partners. And so, men getting into spaces together talking shit about their wives or
Mm-hmm.
their girlfriends. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that does not happen in my circles. My friends are champions of my relationship. They will affirm and validate me because they love me, but they'll do it sincerely, not because they want to commiserate or like talk shit together, that kind of gossipy, behind someone's back kind of energy. But they're wanting the best for my relationship, and them saying negative things about my partner just to like make me feel good and connect with me on that level. that has no place in those friendships. And so when we're talking about how important it is for men to have other men and how that influences relationship and romance, that is a component that's super important, that is so valuable to me. Like when I get with my guys, uh, Lex, my wife, she is so open to me going to hang out with my guys because she knows I'm going to be better when I come back. I
Mhm.
will be a better husband and partner to her, because those guys reflect oftentimes quite radically my blind spots in the context of my relationship. So and that's something that only guys can and should do. My wife criticizing me or telling me my shortcomings in relationship with her, certainly there's a place for some of that, but it's more the exception, not the rule. My guys, there's something about like when a dude calls me out and up, especially a guy I respect, there's a level of candidness and directness and iron sharpens iron kind of vibes there that is, I don't know, a tale as old as time. And it certainly supports me and is something that I'm a big champion of with my friends and guys I work with. So I think that is a very important component.
Hmm. Yeah. And just because I know I've been around you for some time, so I know that you can speak to this, but so when you were just saying, when you are going in your container in your space with men, like Lex encourages that. I hear often from women, some women, right? Like they don't encourage that because of the people that the man has chosen to have in their circle, right? Either they don't like them, they're not the best influence, or what, however you want to categorize it. So how have you guys in your relationship, I guess, essentially kind of made sure that like these people that are in your network, in your circle, are the quote unquote right sort of people for you?
Yeah. So the place I'll start with is we're not a match. We're not an energetic match for anything that is not reflecting our highest. And that sounds a little woo woo to say, but it's just real. I guess more practically, early on, I was very committed and certainly still am, but early in my personal development journey, career, if you will, I was like, oh, yeah, no, living anything less than grounded authenticity and really speaking my heart and mind. Not to say I'm always right or I always get it right, but following that energy in that direction, somebody who is not in alignment with that just doesn't stick around, whether it's because I won't let them or they don't want to. So they just naturally fall away. And so to me, that's a natural byproduct of living in this way, is that I magnetize the people and the experiences, the men, the women, the couples that match up on that in that way. And equally, as it goes with magnetizing, I strongly repel those that don't. That's like a very polarizing way of living that uh, can be intense at times, especially early on in this journey when it's new. And if that involves old friends falling away, then so be it. And I want to be clear that I'm still on some level friends with most of my friends that I have been throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of some of the guys I grew up with in my adolescent years in Ohio, in like small Midwest town. I'm not active friends with them. When I go back to Ohio to visit family once or twice a year, I usually will meet up with them for a beer and we'll tell old stories. And I actually think that is some of the more important work that a man can do, is not hide from the past. I don't want to enable, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time with those people and invest a lot of energy, but in those micro moments, in those 1 to 3 hours once a year kind of time, I do my best to stay in my authenticity, meet them where they're at, and hopefully influence them, or at the very least, give them an experience that is nourishing to them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there's my long-winded riff.
Yeah, no, I love that because that you're essentially reflecting to them like what it looks like to do the work and to go there, right? And
Mhm.
I appreciate that because I think that I hear this often, and I've experienced this in myself too, mainly in my 30s, but grieving the loss of friendships or grieving
Yeah.
leveling up from friendships or not being as close to people that were really important pieces of my past. But people grow, right? And oftentimes you can grow apart, and so just in doing that, and I'm glad that you said that. That really like resonated for me because now here I am like taking it all personal, but I think in some ways like I have avoided those. I've avoided being around those people for fear of probably not being accepted, being judged, right? Like maybe reverting back to an old version of myself. And so for like let's bring it back to the man part of this, like how would you say, so if you are showing up authentically in these situations, and then how does that would you say improve your relationship, and more so like in your community and your container of the men that you have on a regular basis,
Hmm.
when, let's say, if there's conflict in marriage or conflict in life, right? You already said you're not going there, it's not to bash, but how does that look, when how does that play out in that container with your friends? And
Yeah.
what does it look like when you get home after that?
Hmm. So I'll give a somewhat specific example. Every other week, I meet with my closest friends here in the Austin area, Texas, that are we have our men's group. And these are like my squad, my council, my council of kings, if you will. And a big piece of those experiences that's super valuable when it comes to romance and husband wife kind of stuff, I can be very unfiltered and say things to them that I would never say to my wife. And that's not because I'm lying or I'm being inauthentic. It's I'm being appropriate for the relationship that I have with these men in service of my wife. So it's not, I may vent and say some things that are maybe even unkind, that these guys know where my heart ultimately is, and that I need to be held in a container on a consistent basis where I can just fucking say some shit and not have to think about it all that much, not have to perfect the words around it. Uh, and then I can come back to my wife, and here's where the rubber meets the road. I've been able to be fully expressed to men who can hold it and aren't going to judge me, but then can also like help me process and integrate and reflect back. And I can then come back to my wife with something that is well processed already, so that all of that small self stuff, my own shit, because it's never she's wrong and I'm right, or vice versa, she's right and I'm wrong. It's so rarely that black and white. There's always at least 1% of ownership that I can take, even if it's 99% her, which is typically not that way, but just for this thought experiment. And so when I can come back with that, and here's an important framework that I love to sit with and promote and really encourage guys to step into: authentic ownership versus false responsibility. And so before I had guys like this, and I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing in a relationship oftentimes, I just wanted the emotion and the intensity and the conflict to go away. And so the
Mhm.
way I would do that is I would more or less disassociate when her emotions and energy got big, when she got kind of coercive, so to speak, with her energy. I would collapse, I would disassociate, and I would take false responsibility. God, I just think about sometimes with like my college sweetheart as it goes, where I would just say I'm sorry,
Mm.
like repeatedly, and it didn't mean really anything. It was meaningless. It was just all I knew what to do was say I'm sorry, and try and grasp onto something that I could take false responsibility for to make this go away, even though it was not authentic ownership. So my guys helped me mine through the shit, the false responsibility, the manipulation, the toxic masculinity, and just all this stuff that's a normal human man experience. And then we find the golden wisdom nuggets. Okay, where is the authentic ownership? What am I not seeing? Or what is like the core, like what is the lead domino? What is the transcendent truth?
Mhm.
And they are masterful at helping me get there.
Mm. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, again, like this, the whole topic of this conversation is to really advocate for men having these male friendships. And what I'm hearing a lot in the people that I'm working with, or even past clients, they're oftentimes like, I hear from them, well, my partner does that. I don't need male friendships because she is everything, or she, right? Like I tell her everything. She's my best friend, right? These are often things I hear. And so just already in hearing you speak to what depth you're able to go through with your male group versus then what you would bring back to her, I know that's hitting it, but I know that you have probably further more to say
Oh
on like
yeah.
why this, you can't like lay it all onto her.
Yeah. When I hear guys use some of those phrases, like this is incredibly condescending, but I'm going to say it anyways. Bless your heart, brother, is what comes to mind, because I get it. I've been there. I still go there. And I get to chickadee check myself before I riggedy wreck myself. My partner is not my therapist. And I get the sentiment behind she's my best friend. Like, for all intents and purposes, my wife is my best friend.
Yeah.
But what that means and how that plays out and sort of the crutch of that for men is not good. It just unequivocally is not good.
Mhm.
Um, my actual best friend, my man best friend, we have an appropriate masculine relationship that if I were to be that way with my wife, and when I am, it's not good. It's and I need that. Men need that male camaraderie, and that cannot come. It should not come. It must not come from like the romantic female partner. And so and it's just like, I mean, you think about it too, there's so many layers of entanglement. So my wife and I are roommates, we're
Mhm.
lovers, we're business partners too. That's its own like big factor in the midst of it. And there's so many opportunities for us to be codependent, really, instead of interdependent. And so, for guys watching, listening to this, Way of the Superior Man, you've probably heard it before if you're listening to this podcast, but it is the foundational Bible of sorts for men and women. Listening to this, read
Mhm.
that as well. It's very relevant for women to understand their men. And there's plenty of other amazing books and works out there that speak to this general concept, but it is just such a great place to start. And so, there's independence, codependence, and interdependence. And most relationships are in the first two categories.
Mhm.
They kind of oscillate between independence and codependence. And for a healthy romantic relationship that's like sustainable, and we're talking, decades, a lifetime together, that is not just complacency, it's not sexless, because a lot of the relationships that I hear, championing best friend, she's my everything, they don't have a lot of sex. And the sex that they do have oftentimes is like obligatory, it's enduring, it's going through the motions, it's not particularly hot or connected. And I get that. It's because who wants to fuck their best friend? Like, really? No. So, and like, I mean, this is maybe the last thing, this is a little random, but relevant nonetheless. I don't play sports with my wife. I don't play games with my wife. Really, we'll play board games with other couples, and sometimes we'll play various games together. But like, I play a lot of games with my friends, and so a lot of the men's work that I do are a good piece of it, as you know, because your husband came to one of my events, and he and I'll just give the quick story. At my events, I do something I call the Bro Olympics. So one of the days we spend a few hours just playing a bunch of games and competing and collaborating. And that is so nourishing and important for men. And me and Danny were in first place at the end. So we had a sudden death experience and he won. He was the better man on that day. And as a playful consequence, I'm just going to share the whole thing. Fuck it, why not? Because I think this illuminates what I think is possible
Mhm.
and just my unique, I guess, secret sauce with this stuff that I think a lot of guys really resonate with is at the end of it, the playful consequence is he fucking spanked my ass with a frisbee. Bare ass like spanked me hard. It
Mhm.
hurt. And it was hilarious. Like everybody got a laugh at it. It brought us together. And on the other side of that, we then go into a very sincere workshop where guys are crying, where they're having massive transformational breakthrough moments that are changing the trajectory of their lives. And so I think maybe the last thing I'll say to wrap a bow around this whole thing is cultivating that range of like, I can be super deep, super sincere, super authentic, and I can be borderline toxic, if you will, but not actually toxic. It's just boys being boys. It's like us playing with each other. It's us like wrestling. It's, being sarcastic and playfully talking shit. It's the more that I have the depth on like the authenticity side, the more I can go into like this side of it where it on the surface might seem a little toxic, but because we know each other's hearts and we've gone there, we can oscillate between all of that. And that is such that breadth and depth, that spectrum of experience is the spice of life.
Mhm. Yeah. And just to like speak to the like witnessing men as a man is witnessing another man going there, right? And going into that depth of vulnerability. I feel this is one thing I've heard from Danny, like you just gain so much more respect for that person. And just with
Yeah.
friendships, even our, friendships now here at home outside of, retreat life, like us encouraging our friends to be able to go there. And for Danny, like since going to that retreat, like he came back a different person, like a new
Mhm.
version of himself. Of course, I'm sure most men do when they step into something like this. And now to see that this has been over a year now since he attended this, but now to see this like playing out in our home friendships and to see other friends cry, our male friends cry, like our male friends be
Mhm.
willing to go there and know that we're a safe place to do that because we also go there.
Yeah.
Like that is just, I'm like getting tearful even just speaking about it because but when I first started met you guys and like to see what you guys have within friendships and like I could never have that. Like I always thought like there's no way, and now to see that years now to like start unfolding and to be able to now be in these spaces, it's credible, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I would love to double click on that because what I'm hearing in there is a super common story that I hear from others and that was very true in myself and that I can relate to is, well, those people aren't around me. I don't, I don't know where to find those people. Where do I find those people? And I get that. And I will say they're everywhere. And
Yeah.
sometimes you are called to be the lighthouse, the beacon in that regard. And as it often goes, that's not the most easy, lighthearted, enjoyable space to hold, to be the leader, the lighthouse. But it's a righteous calling.
Mhm.
And I don't care where you are in Michigan and middle America, it's they are there. And you get to attract the people who have those raw goods, the raw gifts, however you want to label it. And then they will see that and be like, okay, yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that, but something they're striking a chord. I'm ready, willing, and able to go there. And it's not easy. If you want it to be a little easier, but also harder in a sense, the other recommendation I'll give to people is
Mhm.
literally move geographically to where you think they are. That is the main reason why I moved to Austin, Texas, why my wife and I moved here.
Mhm.
Because I knew a handful of people and I just felt like this is where the energy was for the kind of people I wanted to be around, and the community I wanted to cultivate. And before this, it was California. And so, it's not the easiest or most accessible thing to everyone. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Mhm.
And once you taste what it can look like in community, oftentimes by going to a retreat, that's how it was for me. I went to my first personal development retreat, spent money I didn't have, and was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Charge it on a credit card, figure it out later. And I'm so glad that I did that because that's what about 10 years ago now got me moving in this direction that ultimately got me to more or less the life of my dreams. Certainly the community of my dreams. Not to say my life's perfect and devoid of challenge, but I definitely have the most amazing friendships and community I could ever imagine. And I could have never imagined it before having like boldly stepped into this world.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've already given a few examples, but I know sports are such a big piece for men and for women, but just to have that competitive camaraderie with one another. But these are oftentimes like this is where I would say I find my people. Like I know I'm into sports, I'm into the competitiveness. Like that's where I find. And then for me, people that are also interested in the spiritual side of things is an importance. So I'll just sort of drop those little questions or or
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I'm hosting this women's circle, and you see who like piques their curiosity around it and
Yeah.
asks questions about it. Or maybe they're wearing crystal bracelets or some spiritual
Mm-hmm.
shirt or something like that. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
like I know, like I'm identify you as my people. So as you
Yep.
said, yeah, your people are out there. And one thing that I've learned, you had us do an exercise at the couples retreat that we came to with you guys around friendships and building community. And I remember sitting there and thinking like, there wasn't many people on my list that I felt like checked all of the boxes, like checked all of my needs and friendships. And I would say same would be true for Danny. But in that moment, I feel like we came home, we took that step back and we were like, no, it's not necessarily for us to decide. Like we then went to our community and kind of shared like what our takeaways were. And that was really the start of this. It's like, okay, who was actually willing to go there, who wanted to hear more about our experience. And just the word depth just keeps coming up over and over and over again, because that's really, really what it was that we were seeking in our life and friendships. It just felt so surface level for the most
Yeah.
part.
Mhm.
And yeah, like we said, like talk about outgrowing friendships. Like there's some people that just are no longer in our lives, or as you said, like those micro times that you spend with them. It's like, yeah, I can show up, I can be there. It's not that I'm cutting you off, I'm not taking you out of my life, right? It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
But you're choosing who you're spending your time with, because you know what to expect and you know what you're gaining from that. And really what both people would be gaining from that.
Yep. Yeah. And like, am I truly a better person when I leave this guy's presence?
Mhm.
It's a fairly simple and maybe confronting question to ask. And like you said, doesn't mean I have to cut them out. I'm a big fan of crowding out
Mm.
or like adding instead of subtracting. It seems to just be a more effective strategy for me to add good things into my life than to try and get rid of bad things. I'd say that that's not part of the equation. But when I just add more good people to my life, there's less space for the bad people to fucking label them. But again, those people still hold special space in my heart, and I think that's something that sometimes I hear people get wrong that are talking about this stuff. It's like, oh, you got to cut out those people in your life that are energy vampires, and I get what they're saying, but I think it's just I don't want to live in a vacuum of my personal development. I think like with my guys in my men's group, I'm always reminding them that, hey, the work doesn't stay here. Like the things that we do here, take this to your world, take this to your family, to your friends, to siblings, because it needs to be a gift that keeps on giving.
Mhm.
To be on the soapbox, like that's the kind of shit that truly changes the world. Like if I'm just in my own little bubble, like oh yeah, like cool, I got my friends, I got my world, it's great. Yeah, I've just cultivated this. It's like like I want more than that. It feels way more fulfilling, and there's a higher calling and like a connection to a higher power and purpose that is just so much more energizing and fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, and two, like I think last piece I add here is that people change. There are people that, previously
Yeah.
like, they definitely they're not my cup
Yep.
of tea, they're not here. And then in reconnecting with them more in this like acquaintance level, it's like, wow, right. Like, and so that's where I kind of wanted to go back to like giving your friends the benefit of the doubt, giving your people
Yeah.
in your current circle the benefit of the doubt and not just canceling them out right away. Because even looking at myself, like I would hate for somebody to be judging me based on who I was even a year ago, 3 years,
Yeah.
5 years ago, right? Like, and so for me then to do that same, right? Like, so if there's people in your circle that you might think would fit the box, like fit your group, be a good match for you, reach out to them. They're coming. I would say they're coming up on your radar for a reason.
Amen.
All right, Jordan, this was amazing conversation. And because I want you to be able to plug, I share all the time your guys' things, but you host virtual men's circles
Mhm.
online. And that is such like for people that are listening to this of like, where do I even start? Where can I even get a taste of like what this looks like? I think
Mhm.
those resources would be great. So how can people follow you, contact
Mhm.
you, get in touch with Sex and Love Co?
Yep. So the place where I play most often online is my Instagram.
Mhm.
So at Jordan Bowditch, Jordan, the standard way you spell Jordan, then Bowditch, the way you would think, but almost nobody gets it right. Bow, Ditch, Ditch, Bowditch. And as far as the specific things I'm up to, there's like two or three core things. One is my virtual men's group. And those are 6 month commitments, and I have quarterly cohorts of people that are coming in and flowing out. So it's typically around 20 guys, and we do rites of passage every week that are very sincere and also very playful. And I have guest facilitators that come in once a month, and it's just a really fun, intimate, brotherly space. And then I have my in person experiences, which if I had it my way, I would do those nonstop. They're so fun, they're so fulfilling, and it's an undertaking and a production for sure. But my next one is here in Austin, Texas. I call them the Man Meat Summit, April 19th to 21st. And then for people that, maybe those are just a little too big of a commitment for whatever reason, I usually do like a quarterly men's circle experience, a virtual one. I do things in person here in Austin also. So if people live in Austin, they can see what those one-offs that I'm doing. But I do these virtual men's circle webinar kind of things. They're
Mhm.
typically like 20 or $30 just to put a little skin in the game to show you mean it. And that's like a nice micro dose of men's work. They're like 90 minutes. And the one I had like a month and a half ago was as good as any I've ever had. It just never ceases to amaze me. Sometimes there's only like 5 or 10 guys, and sometimes there's 20, 30 or more. And it doesn't matter how many people are there. It's just predictably awesome. So there's some ways you can check me out.
Yeah. And I highly, highly recommend, definitely. And, Jordan Alexa have the podcast too, that Sex Chick, another great resource that I know you've had similar conversations to this, extensions, again, like how this shows up in relationships and, yeah, all the things. So thank you, Jordan, for this conversation. I'm very, very excited to be able to share this with people moving forward. And I know that, yeah, it'll just be like a different flavor for people, a different taste of the men life for them.
Thank you so much. It feels really good to share the space with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at @TheRachelMain. I'll see you next week.